Hello and welcome to the Maureen Bradley Designs YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me and Happy New Year. I'm Stephanie Reese, your host, and today I'm sharing with you how I embellished this silver Luna moth from Jesse James Beads. I'm also sharing with you the Spirit of the Woods collection, the mushroom from Jesse James Beads. So let's get started. Okay, so I wanted to share with you first the beads I'm working with. This is Into the Woods, the mushroom. So this is the collection I'm going to be making with the moth pendant from Jesse James Beads. And just giving you a little bit of a close-up of everything that's in the bead mix. Is so beautiful. So I love these red mushrooms. They're so awesome and I just love them. So that's the bead collection I'm working with. The seed beads that we're using, I'm also going to incorporate these. I haven't decided yet. I thought it would be neat to add my Luna moth and make connections, but I'm not 100% sure yet because I have two of them. I'm thinking maybe if I don't use it in the necklace, it would be wonderful for earrings. So we may use them for earrings. I'm just not 100% sure yet. So the seed beads I'm using for this collection is, I'm using the gold from Add a Little Sparkle. And then I'm using the classic coal. I'm using it's almost like a hematite finish, and it's like a coal color. And then this deep matte burgundy from Classic Coal. So I'm using those three colors, and I've already gone ahead and mixed them. So here's what it looks like mixed. I used my seed bead spinner and I mixed just a little bit, since I don't need all of the seed beads from the packages. I mixed just a little bit, just enough to use on the moth. So here again is the moth, and as you can see, I've completed the one side, and this is, I just love filling in these open areas of the moth. And as you can see at the top, I'm leaving the top areas open so that I can make a connection on both sides. And I filled in this bottom piece, and then here where you see the smaller holes, I'm going to put little crystals and fill those in with a little sparkle. So let's get started, shall we? All right, so I've gone ahead and I've threaded some Nymo. This is a good time to tell you what you're going to need for this moth. Of course, you're going to need the lunar moth from Jesse James Beads. I'll be putting links to everything that you see here in the comments of the video, or sort of, I guess, as the description of the video. So I'm using Ceylon seed beads and the lunar moth, and I've gone ahead and I have a, of course, well-loved beading needle. It's getting a little bent, and the Ceylon I've gone ahead and conditioned with some beeswax. So I just run it's about an arm's length of Ceylon, and then I just run it over some beeswax to condition it, to hopefully keep it from knotting up, and just making it easier to thread the beads on. So I'm going to go ahead and knot my piece here and anchor it on the inside of the second space here at the bottom of the wing. So I'm coming here and I'm going to leave a tail just so you have enough to run it back through. So I'm just taking my needle and I'm making my knot here. So that I can, it's just an overhand knot like so, and I'm just tying it onto the wing there to anchor my thread. And then I'm making a surgeon's knot, and that is where you start the overhand knot and you go through twice with your tail through the loop. So 1 time and 2 times, and then I just tighten it. And then I leave my thread hanging down because at the end we will be dealing with it. So now I'm grabbing my needle. In this first one I have 2, 4, 6 beads. I am not really doing anything in any type of pattern. I'm just picking them up as you go. As you can see, I'm just moving this stuff out of the way so we can make sure you're in the camera and you can see. So that's 2, 4, I'm sorry, that's 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I'm just gonna run them on down the thread there. And this is such a fun way to fill in the areas of the moth. And then as long as you've got little areas where you can anchor your thread, there's no reason why you can't use a running stitch to fill in the open areas of the moth. So I'm just going to take my thread down the top of where it's connected on the moth, as you can see. So there we go, like that. So now I've come out, and now you're going to, I tend to hold my beads in place, and then I hold my thread in between my fingers like that so that it's tight. And you're going to come back through that opening so that it's anchored in place. Like that. So I've come back, and then I'm going to turn, and then I'm just holding the thread in my hand, in my right hand, and I'm just going to take those beads, or my needle, back through all of those beads down to the end. Like that. I'm just pulling my thread. And then sometimes if you get to where it looks like you're doing a half hitch knot, just come back through so that your beads can sit straight like that. And then we're just making sure that tail stays on the outside like that. So now that we've reached the end, we're going to take our needle and come back through that same loop. And then this time I do want to anchor my string into place so that it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to do a half hitch knot where I take my needle through that little loop that it's making. And then I'm just pulling it tight. And then I'm going to come back through, move my beads up here. So we're on the next opening. We're going to move to the next opening. So I'm taking my needle and I'm coming up through that opening. And as you see, it's making another loop, and I'm going to create another half hitch knot to anchor my thread in place. I'm taking my needle through that loop. And now that enables me to go up the second opening on the wing. So here we did 2, 4, 6, 8 seed beads, and again it's a random order. I'm not adding them in any pattern. So I'm going to bring this down and get 8 more beads. I think if I do any type of pattern, I'm just sort of trying to make sure I get an even number of the dark coal, the burgundy, the gold, but I try to just do it randomly. There's really no pattern, and you know what? You can use any color you want with any beads you want. 4, 6, 7. 8. That's the beauty of it. Hopefully you'll use my links to make some purchases from jessiejamesbeads.com. It's always fun to shop at Jessie James Beads. I absolutely love their products, and I have such a fabulous time designing with their stuff. So now we have to look at where we anchor. So if I go here, it's going to slide around. So I am going to anchor my beads to this smaller hole here, to the inside of that, so that my beads stay in place. So I'm going to go down, bring my needle through that little hole, and I'm just going to inch that down, bringing my beads up, making sure I don't catch that tail. So here you're going to see it slide over. It's quite all right. So now I'm just holding things with my hand, and I'm coming up the same hole where we're adding the seed beads. So that it's anchored in place like that. And then I'm going to come through where my string went through. Oops, dropped it. Okay, let's try again. So where my string, my Ceylon, went through that hole, I'm coming back up, and it's going to make a little half-hitch knot so that it stays anchored in place. And just try not to catch the beads in your knot. As you can see, it's just catching it like that so that it anchors to that hole. And then, so I'm going to turn this down. Then we're going to run the Ceylon back through the beads. Like that. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to come up, so our thread is down here at the bottom of the moth. We're going to come back through the opening we just added the beads to. And as you do that, it creates a little loop. Let's just make sure our tail is out. And then I'm going to hold that tail in the back here. So we have this loop here, right? So I'm going to take my needle and bring that thread through that loop so that I have a half-hitch knot at the base of where I added the second set of beads. And then we're going to step over to the next opening. So I'm going to come up. Actually, you could do either one. So I'm going to go over through that, as long as you're catching the bar right here of the next opening. And so we've created a loop by doing that. And we want to do the half hitch knot for that opening, like so. And this makes it so that you can come up to the next with your beads. See where my I'm so used to working with wire. My thread, my Ceylon thread, is ready to take beads for the next opening. So that one we did 5 beads. So again, I'm randomly adding 5 beads. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm just going to run those down. Like so. And I'm going to anchor those beads to the small hole here. So I'm going to go down and pull my thread all the way through. I'm holding on to the thread with my fingers, and I'm coming up on the bottom where my seed beads were added. And pulling that thread through and over. And then I just want to anchor it in place. So I'm going to run my needle under that thread, creating a half hitch knot. So now it's also anchored in place, and that allows me to run my thread back through the beads we just added. So I'm going to go back all the way through them, back down to the end where the gold bead is. And again, I'm adding my thread here. I'm coming through the opening, and I'm going to do a half hitch knot. So I'm going to hold my tail out of the way so I don't get it caught up in that loop. And I'm pulling everything tight, like that. So now you're ready to step over to the next opening. You can go over or under, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you do the half hitch knot so that it anchors your thread, and you can go up through the same opening. I'm going to go ahead and finish this side, and I'll be back. So did you think I'd leave you hanging without knowing how to do an interior opening? So I'm going to show you that now. So I've gotten this far where I filled in this bottom area, and I'm back down. I've put a half knit hitch knot on the bottom bar of that opening. So now I'm going to come back up through the 3 beads here on the side that I just did. And that is going to bring my string up through here. I'm just going to take my needle and put it through the opening that I want to add beads to, making sure I don't get my tail caught in there, and I'm going to come back up through the opening with the 3 beads. See that? Right there. And that is going to anchor me so that I can add beads to that interior opening there. And again, we're just doing them randomly. I went ahead and spilled my beads out so it's a little bit easier. I believe I'm doing 6 beads for that opening. And I'm just going to slide them on down like that. I'm making sure I'm not putting too many in. And then I'm going to anchor those beads in this with this hole here. So I'm taking my Ceylon through, and every now and then I catch my tail there, and then my string gets wrapped up. So you just have to unwrap it. And then we're pulling the beads on through like that. And I'm going to bring my needle back through that opening where I've added the beads. And I'm pulling my seal on so I don't knock my beads over. So I've added it, I've got it there. And then I'm going to take my needle back through the thread where I've looped it around so that I can half hitch knot it to keep it all in place. There we go. And now tightening it with my thumb, and I'm just going to take my seal on back through. I'm just catching my seal on everything. All right. So now, to keep my beads straight, I'm going to come all the way down to that opening on the bottom. See where my needle's coming up through? And I'm going to anchor the thread there. Remember to do the half hitch knot. I keep wanting to say notch. Where you take your thread through that needle and then just make sure you're anchoring it down on the end. It wants to do what it wants to do, but that's okay. There we go. So now you've got beads on the interior of your moth. So remember to bring your thread back through so that you can step over to the next opening. And I'm just doing the half hitch knot to keep everything in place. And now I can do all these openings here, and now you know how to get the interior openings. Okay, so I have made it and filled in my wings on my moth, and I'm at this very end part, so I wanted to show you how I finished adding beads on the tails and then tied off and hide my string in the beads. So I have half hitched, knotted the last part of these beads to this side, and then I've come back through, and you see how my seal-on is coming out of that last bead. So now I'm going to come down here and go through the tail, and then I'm going to come back up through that hole where the last part of my beads are, and that anchors my beads going down. And then remember to do another half hitch knot going through your thread so that when you do that, your thread is now anchored downward. So we're going to add 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 beads to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And again, it's totally random. I'm not even, if there's any type of pattern, again, it's just to make sure I've got an even number of different colored beads, but it's totally pretty random. So then now I'm coming up through the tail so that I can anchor it on. Oops, did I do the wrong thing? I'm sorry. I was supposed to go down, not up. That's why my beads are all crazy. So I'm going to go down. So I've got all my beads here coming down. There we go. We got a little, it gets a little, all right. I think we're straight now. So I've gone down through the tail, and I'm going to come around and up and go back down again so that we can make our half hitch knot. And remember, you're putting your needle through that loop and pulling it tight. Like that. my loop. There we go. And pull it tight so that your beads are snug onto the tail. Now we're going to do a surgeon's knot where we go, make sure you don't go through your thread. And remember, we're going to go through the loop twice to do the surgeon's knot. So once and twice. And that should anchor your beads. There we go. Onto your tail and just pull it tight. So now we want to hide our thread. So I'm going to go up through all of those beads. And that's it. You don't want to go through any of the other beads. So I'm just going to use my finger to guide my needle away from all the other stuff. And it's coming back through those beads there. Just make sure they're tight. There we go. And I push down on it. And then I'm going to go back through the top, the hole above the tail. There we go. And again, I'm going to knot it again if I can get my needle through there. And then that way my thread is totally anchored on. There we go. I'm just going to put it down so I can tighten it. It's a little loose. And then I'm coming back through. There's like a little loop there, and I want to come back through that. There it is. And then I'm going to go back down my beads so that it's nice and strong. They're not going to go anywhere. I'm feeding my needle through all those beads. Can get my, there we go. I lost my needle. Okay, there we go. It's a little tricky, and then if you need to, you can go through however many beads and then pick them back up again, which is fine. Bring our thread down, and then I'll pick up the rest of those beads there. One last bead. We can do it. Okay. All right. So that has anchored everything into place. You can trim away your thread when you're done because you've anchored everything, and then your beads are not going to go anywhere. And then this thread, you can also do the same thing where you kind of come up, come back around, down, and then go up, do a half hitch knot, come back up, and then back down again, so that you can get rid of your tail of your thread. And then if you're brave and want to continue on, you can give this little guy, his little belly or body, some seed beads as well. But I think it looks really cool like it is, and I may just stay with that. So I hope you enjoyed some freeform stitching today on this silver Luna Moth from Jesse James Beads. Again, I will put all of the links in the description of this video. I hope that you are enjoying the new year, and I look forward to spending some more time with you soon. Thank you.